Today on Rocket Punch, we take a look at Grit Fantasy RPG. Today, we're going to take a look at Grit Fantasy RPG. I bought this book on Thru RPG, hardcover. It turned out pretty good. No quality issues, looks good. So let's take a flip through. Ooh, nice blank page. And what is this? A signed copy. So he did not give this to me. I bought it, and then I found out he actually lives close to where I work. So I contacted him. We found out about each other, and I met him, and then I had him sign my book. So Grit Fantasy RPG, design, writing, and art by Jeremy Pete, editing and layout by Ryan James. Copyright Gnomebot Studios, 2024. So I like it as a nice contents, has pretty much everything. There's no index, but you don't really need it. Everything's kind of in the contents of the page. So Grit is like a super quick, easy to pick up, easy to play game. And this art, I love this part, but this basically is the game. If this kind of art, this kind of vibe is kind of your jam, you'll definitely like it. So some core concepts. It uses the D12, which, needs love. And then basically rolls are either a static, so you beat a target and there's some targets in the next pages, or you do an opposed roll. So you both kind of roll 2d12s, the GM and then the player, and then the difference between those two determines the results. There's no turn order, that's number 3, so you just blurt out everything. Whoever can blurt out the quickest, basically, or, kind of within reason. The only caveat is the last player to go cannot go first in the next round. There's just the 3 simple measurements, which are, close, near, and far. And players, there's 3 focus die, which I'll explain in a minute, which is kind of a cool, it's different from luck, but it kind of similar kind of vein of what you can do with it. And there are no spells, there's just a ton of loot and cool stuff you can pick up. And each character, you have 10 grit points. That's pretty much everything. So more cool art. And here we go over it. That's it. That's the basic rules. Now the core rules this is kind of what you could give if you picked up the book. If you gave to your players, it's kind of short. So the basics, you declare an objective. GM makes a number, make an aspect roll. So your aspects are kind of like your attributes or your stats. And then if you want to use a focus die to boost those, then you get the results. So you got your primary die, your D12, and typically you have your focus die D4, D6, D8 that you could add to that roll. Or humans, they have a little bit better focus die. So then you got your static rolls. So you got easy 3, average 6, hard 9, and absurd 12. So you just roll a D12. If I say this task is 6 to open up the treasure or jump over the gorge or climb this precipice or whatever. If I say it's average 6 and you roll your D12 and you get a 5 and then your attribute is a +1 to the roll, then you get a 6. So you meet it or beat it. So that's basically it. So there's a couple examples here. And then your game turns. So you just have, as I said before, whoever goes last can't go first in the next round, but you can kind of shout out or go whenever it kind of makes sense in the story. You got your movement and range, and then your grit, which is your HP. So everybody basically has a 10, and then some monsters have less than that or more than that, kind of like mooks and things like that. So your aspects, or like I said, your attributes or stats, you have 5. You have 2 physical and 2 mental, and then 1 that binds the 2, which is kind of interesting. So you have your M, which is your might. You got your P, prowess, valor, insight, and command. So might is like your physical strength and melee attacks and things like that. Prowess is your agility, and then your ranged attacks. Valor is kind of your resilience to mental and physical attacks, mind control, poisons. Insight is your perception, your awareness, tracking, and command is basically charm, intimidate, deception. And then this is kind of what your stats look like. MPVIC, you get a +2, +1, -1, -1, -1. So these are whatever you add or minus to that D12 roll. And that's it. That's what you roll. You're done. And then you have your focus die. And basically, at the start of every little adventure, your scenario, you get your D4, D6, and D8. So if you fail your aspect roll, then you can use your focus die. So maybe if you lose it by 1 or 2, you use a D4 or a D6. But once you use it, they're gone until you get them back at the end of the adventure or the next or whatever kind of makes sense. There are other methods of loot and stuff that can give you those back, but basically once you use them, you lose them. Gear slots, you have 10 gear slots, which is nice. I like gear slots. I don't like encumbrance at all. Sorry. I grew up with encumbrance and I just hate bean counting. So I like slots. And then, yeah, you just have gear and you have some kits, like you might have a disguise kit or something like that that has useful little things in there. And then you have food and potions that you can use as, like, I don't want to call it a bonus action. I don't like that, but you can kind of use as a quick action and still take your melee or ranged attack or something like that. And then your grit recovery. So you recover grit just between play sessions. When you do go to 0 grit, you have 2 options, and I love them. I always will pick the first one. So the first one, if you go to 0, instead of just dying, what's fun is you get Blaze of Glory. So you just get one final action that's basically a natural 12. You can basically do anything cool. That sounds awesome in the game, and the GM kind of says, oh, that makes sense. Or you could get a second chance, I guess, if you decide to go that way. But Blaze of Glory is where it's at, man. Because it's so quick to make a character. So second chance, you get to get back up, but your max grit stays at 5. You'll never recover your full 10. It's basically you have a scar, you have something that you lost an arm or something, so you'll never get back to 10 grit. And then combat, so it's basically attack, sprint, and miscellaneous. So you get an attack, you get a sprint, miscellaneous. So in the miscellaneous is that kind of like out of turn kind of action of like quaffing a potion or whatever like that. So melee, when you do melee attack, you just roll your M or your might bonus. Well, you don't roll your bonus. So you roll your D12 and then you add your M or your might. So +2. So I roll a D12, I get a 6. I have a M might of +2, so I have an 8. And that's it. And if that either beats static roll, maybe lifting iron, bending iron bars, whatever. Everyone, that's the typical SR, bend iron bars. So I rolled an 8. I would say that's probably at least a 9. So hard, so I didn't make it. But then I could roll my bonus die of a D4, and then I have so I got my 6 I rolled, and then I have my might of +2, and then I can roll my D4 focus die, and maybe I get a 3 on that. So now I've beat it. Then you have the same thing for ranged attacks. So ranged, you roll your prowess. So it's either might or prowess. Making a reaction. So in here, you only have your action or a reaction. You can one or the other. If the monster is going to go before you, you can burn your action and try to dodge out of the way, or you can try to counterattack. So dodge would just be a static roll, and then a counterattack would be an opposed roll. So if the monster rolled an 8 and then you got a 6, then the monster is going to hit you. If the monster rolls an 8 and you roll a 9, then you get out of the way. You get a counterattack. Or you can take the hit and just hopefully your armor soaks it. Another cool rule that this kind of gets missed because it's way in the bottom here is flanking. So if one enemy is engaged with you, it typically has to beat a 6 to hit you, unless you're doing an opposed roll. But if there's a flanker there, the flanked enemy only has to get a 3 to hit you because you're already engaged. So mooks and things like that, little simple enemies, that's where they're dangerous. They can all flank you. So one might hit you, and then the other one comes in and only has to hit you with a 3. Another one comes in, only has to hit you with a 3. Getting a 3 is pretty easy. So it's quite dangerous to get flanked. So you always need to pay attention to that. And then damage. So there's basically 4 damage types. There's a static. So yeah, so there's an average difficulty of a 6, and then the troll hits you with a 9, and you're just absorbing it. You're not trying to dodge it or counterattack or anything like that. Then it hits you with a 9 damage, or I mean, it hits you with the difference between the 9 and the 6 to beat you. So it's 3. So if my static is 6 to hit you, the troll rolls a 9. So you just take 9 minus 6 is 3, basic math. And that's how much damage is done. And then that's it. That's easy peasy game. Or opposed roll. So the same thing. It rolls a 10 and you're a 6, so now it's 4. So it's just different types of damages. It depends if you're contesting the roll or you're just meeting. So if I'm just trying to strike you, it's a static. If I'm doing opposed roll, it's you both roll. Whoever's higher gets that damage. Fixed is like if a trap does a certain amount of damage, maybe it does just 1 hit point of damage, a poison needle or something like that. It's a fixed damage. And then you have straight damage. So that's if there's like a falling debris and you fail to hit your prowess roll, agility, then the GM rolls a d6 to see how much damage it does. If it results in a 3, then you get 3 points of damage, unless you have your armor. So right here is your armor. So what's nice in this is armor is soakable, so you don't have to calculate anything. So once it does the 3 damage, if you have a 1 in armor, it soaks 1. So now you have 2 damage coming in at you. And that's basically combat. You're done. And then there's just a couple other things you can do. It has a little bit of rules on like brawling, disarming, grappling, hunker down, improvised weapons, paired weapons, shield bashing, surprise attacks. That's all fairly easy. There's just little 1-sentence guidance on if someone tries to do that. But as a GM, you can kind of roll with it. And then there's a couple of examples of combat. So I'm actually going to do a separate video that kind of does a little short video, a couple scenarios of how combat works or how just opposed rolls or like static rolls kind of work. Just little quick examples. And then there's just a little bit of advice. And then we're on to characters. All right, so next we're going to look at characters. So basically, we're done with the rules. So now we're just going to move on to how to build characters. And I'm going to go have a video on this too, just a little short one. It's not that complicated, just to make sure you get everything that's assigned to you, basically. More of this cool art. One of the things about having the artist be the creator of the game and also the artistic vision of the game, it kind of has that nice cohesive vision with it. So that's another kind of cool thing that I like about this. You can see all this. These are your characters. So there's 12 different lineages, he calls it, in this game. And there's a list, so you can either pick or you could roll a d12 and get your lineage. I mean, I really like this picture too. This knight, that's a cool picture. But these are all your characters. So you have a bullock, which is a frog, a dwarf, elfroom, but I'll kind of go through it through the book. So when you choose each or roll for each character, it kind of has these little tags that kind of describe what kind of character it kind of might be. You can kind of change it, but it's just kind of like just a quick idea tag. So each race or lineage, sorry, I'm used to saying that, lineage in this book has an ability. So that's kind of one of the first things you get. No dark vision. So you get the bullock, which is basically a frog person. So you get frog-like. You can jump or as a short move, cling to vertical surfaces, swim. Dwarf, stocky, stubborn, resilient, brave. Ability, battle-hardened. So your prowess penalty is 1 less when wearing armor. You can be an elf. So you get a mystical aura. You can be a froom. So you get the spore plume, which is kind of cool. Kind of a cool defensive move. You got giant, which has brute strength. Gnome, which I played a bulldog, ninja kind of character. And then I also played a gnome, and gnome was really fun because they get a signature gadget. So you get like kind of a tech gadget that's really cool in the game. You kind of roll on that too. You can be a hoblin, not a goblin, it's a hoblin. So they get sneaky save. Human, so their benefit of a human, because actually I typically play humans in role playing games. But in this, a human gets actually a really cool ability, which is rigorous training. So your focus die, instead of being a D4, D6, D8, is actually a D6, D8, D10. So that could be, life saving. You get a quickling, so you get swift move. You get a ruckwar, so you're kind of like a stone creature. You're made of stone. You get a stoutling, kind of a halfling type of creature, so you got a natural ability to hide. And then you get a wildern, so you can kind of be any kind of furry creature, basically. Typically, we did like squirrels or lemurs or like tanuki, those kinds of things. Nothing like elephants. I never heard of that. I mean, maybe you could. I don't know. If you're the GM, whatever floats your boat. So here again, so step 2, then you allocate your aspect points. So basically, you have a strong aspects, so you can allocate +4 between everything, and a single value can't be above +3. So, for example, you could have might +2, prowess +1, and valor +1. And then you have weak aspects, so you have a combined total of -2. So you can allocate -1 to 2 aspects or -2 to 1. So a typical might be your might is +2, your prowess is +1, your valor +1, your insight is -1, and your command -1. Or you could do even easier, because I'm all about like getting players to the table, and like if a character dies, let's get them back in. So you could go like with this sample for the lineage, or if you don't want to do that, you could also just roll like a d12 and just ignore this lineage and just use this as like a general random attribute table. So if you roll a 2, then you use this line, or if you roll a 12, you get that line. That's it. And then the cool part, now we're getting to the cool part, unique gear. So first you get your character, then you get their kind of special ability, then you decide their attributes, and then you get a cool piece of unique gear. So there's 20 here, but I'm sure you could make up your own, or if you had a cool idea and the GM's okay with it, you could probably pick something from later in the book. But typically you just kind of roll on here, and it's kind of like a really cool thing. My personal favorite is Coat of Blades. It's a thrown weapon, so you use your prowess. It's a clever, indestructible coat that holds and conceals an unlimited number of throwing knives. It is either stylish or intimidating, your choice. So when I played my first playthrough with this, I was a bulldog with a coat of blades, and we were being chased. And when I turned around, I took out my knives and I asked the GM, can I use these as like iron spikes and throw them at the base of the door to lock the door down as we continue running? And he was like, yeah, roll your die. Rolled it, and it succeeded. So it was cool and really awesome. And then after you get your unique gear, then you get 4 basic gear. So you can choose, or you could do random, or a combination of both. So you get a total of 4. So it could be all armor and weapons, it could be all items and kits, or you could do like maybe roll a D2 and a D4. So you roll a D2 to figure out which table it is, and then you roll that 4 times and figure out which one. Or you just roll everything. You could use a D40, I don't know, something like that. And then just a little glossary of some of the little actions and things that are in the book. And then finally, to round out your character, you determine what your focus die are. So it's always a D4, D6, D8. Unless you're a human. If you're a human, then it's D6, D8, D10. Write down your grit, which starts at 10. Soak value, if you have anything from armor. Yeah. Then you roll your features. So you could use this or just describe your own. And then you can add some quirks so you can roll on them, or like kind of like spark chart, kind of get some ideas, unless you already have an idea for your character. And then this is just an example of the character sheet. You can see how simple it is. Just has your name, your lineage, your attributes, your ability from your lineage, your soak value from your armor, your starting grit. Then this is your unique item, and then they have 4 general items. And that's it. We made a character. Let's look at the GM guide. So this has got some cool things in it. So it kind of gives you some advice to remember, like follow common sense, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go over every single thing in this book, but it kind of talks about the static rolls a little bit, clarifications on kind of what the opposed rolls are like. And the really cool thing in here, I mean, unless you have the fate die, which, I mean, sorry, Jeremy, I love the fate die so much. But this is really cool. So the Mighty D4 is cool. So if you don't have the mill die, you can use the Mighty D4. So, to speed things up. And that's what the fate mill die is for. Same thing with this awesome Mighty D4. So it's kind of just like an oracle, or just a quick yes, no, bad, good. How many are there? 1 to 2, a few, 3 to 4, a lot. And then it gives some nice examples. It goes over combat a little bit, just to kind of give you little pointers and things like that. Talks about the GM's turn, and then now it kind of talks about monster stat blocks and how you're going to read those, and how you handle NPCs, and how to handle monsters. I won't go into all of that. And then just some hazards and conditions: acid, poison, that kind of thing, fire, intimidation, some optional rules, critical rolls. I always use that. I want criticals in my games. How to break dawdling, I can't speak. Easy mode, we don't need that. Grits, I don't know, it's not difficult. I guess if you had little kids, that's kind of nice. Healing grit and things like that, or new players. They got some stuff on like milestones, because this game he really focused on kind of like one shots, or like serial adventures. It's almost like a TV show or a cartoon or something. So it's not that you can't do campaign play, and I plan to do campaign play. I'm actually going to use this book to run Mr. J.P. Couvert's Dragon Town, which I backed. So I was looking for a rule set, and this thing is perfect. It's so quick and easy, and I think it meshes well with JP's Dragon Town adventure. But it does tell, and that's a long adventure, so it kind of has some ideas of how you can handle that, like getting more loot, or boosting a focus die. So there's a little advice on there. How to play 1, 2 players, rewarding people, structures. And the awesome thing, the builders. This is awesome. I used it to make a little adventure, so I'll also make a little video about me doing that too. Why not? So it kind of has plot, roll on the plot, roll on terrain, roll on the location, roll on some details, roll on the event. So it could be like, I'll just pick rescue, ocean, labyrinth. Oh, that's cool. Rescue, ocean, labyrinth. So you gotta like go down to the sea, and there's like a sea adventure in a labyrinth that you have to rescue, I don't know, the Kraken or Cthulhu. Rescue Cthulhu from adventurers. There's some details. So there might be a mysterious note or curious statues. Soothing wind, howling gale. Those are all kinds of things at the location. Some cool events, like a traveling carnival. Sure, found wreckage. Oh, that matches with what I talked about. Necrotic blight. Now you're talking stuff I love. I love kind of that dark stuff, like this. And then here's an encounter builder. So you have the adventure, you got some plot hook. Now you need to build a little encounter. So what kind of monster is it? Is it a humanoid? Is it common monster? Is it grit monster? So a grit monster is just one that Jeremy built for the book. Or is it a custom monster that you roll up yourself? And then its actions that it might be doing, and some complications And then there's an NPC builder, so kind of the same thing. Their lineage, their stat block, are they weak, average, strong, same as a monster stat block. Their vocation, demeanor, condition, detail, and their name, which is always handy for GMs. What's that guy's name? I have no idea. And then some cool effects here, like magic effects or trap effects. So you could build a whole game. I went too far. You can build a whole campaign, just a couple charts, and you're ready to go, especially if you get used to it. And you should get used to it. Make your own adventures, but also use, if there's really cool adventures that are made, you can do that too with this game, like Dragon Town from JP Coover. Hey JP. Sorry, Jeremy. But yeah, you can also, just using Jeremy's awesome design and ideas, you can make your own like super duper quick. And we'll make one in another video. Okay, let's look at monsters now. That's awesome. Iron Dragon. So this kind of tells you how to read the stat block, which I'll go in a minute when we actually see the monsters. But you can kind of look at this. So monsters are handled super easy stats. So mooks, little kobolds or whatever, they get a -3. That's the first number. It's a -3 to their roll. And then the second one is how much grit they have. So they have like 1 HP essentially. And this number, the last number, is how many attacks they get. So you have their modifier, their grit, and their actions. So a goon, like you're a goblin maybe, you get unless you consider a goblin a mook, I don't know. Goblin, orc, I don't know. Could be whatever you want. Goon is like a 0, so they have no plus or minus. They have 5 grit, and they have 1 action. And then bosses are like a +3, like a 20, and a 2. And then, so you can kind of change it up however you want, like 1, 5, 10 for probably a humanoid, or a regular, like lineage type creature would always be a 10. And then if you want to boost them up a little bit, you can give them a 5. But once you get up past 15 or into 20, now it's going to be a struggle to defeat them. So we can kind of look at some examples. Here's like, you can kind of roll one, like just kind of a humanoid creatures. So basically kind of like NPCs. So you can have what kind of creature they are, a thug, a thief, a soldier, what lineage they are, and kind of also has some additional here. But it's so easy. You could just quickly modify it if you felt like, oh, it's a soldier, but maybe he's slightly trained, so it's a +1. You can give him a little bit. Maybe he's just the leader of that little platoon, so he's get just a little bit bonus. Then you have these common monsters, so you can roll or pick. And then you have this awesome art by Jeremy. He knows what I like. I like this guy. I like this. So you get a ghost, and then it kind of gives you some information, some things they can do, like terrifying, chilling aura. You get a ghoul. You get the giant centipede. You get the giant crab. This guy's so funny looking. You get the giant rat. Of course, you have to have a giant rat, of course. Giant snake, giant spider. I love giant spiders. Giant toad. You get a goblin. This dude is also hilarious. I'm just gonna snick you. You get the harpy. Oh, PG-13. You get the minotaur, whatever. Ogre. You get the orc. You get the shambling mound. This is what I like in my games. I like kind of a little bit of cosmic horror in my game. Get the cool skeletons, which I love. There's a theme with me, right? You can tell. Slime monster, stone golem. Whoa, too far. You get the troglodyte. You get the troll. And you get the zombie. And then here's some grit monsters. So these are kind of Jeremy exclusives. You can only get these monsters if you buy this book. So you must buy this book to get these monsters. You know you want more monsters. Okay, you get the bloater. You get the crypt scarab. You get the gloop gore, which I love too. Look at all these skulls and grody things. I love that. The grickle. You get the iron draconis. I think grit of 40. Yeah, poo your pants. You got the magnar. You get the Mogling, you get the Mullock, you get the Nilix, you got the Nafflenook. That's pretty cool. You get the Razor Quill, you get the Seeker. This thing is awesome. This is like something out of, I don't want to compare books, but it has that Mork Borgie vibe, which I also dig. You get the Slugworth, the guy that's on the cover, right? There he is in full color. Here he is in black and white, which I love black and white. I love that line art. Takes you back to that classic D&D feeling there. You get the Snotling. Ugh. You get the Sploog. You get the Trunk Root. You get the Thwiggle. And I love this thing too, the Vine Witch. That thing's awesome. Good job, Jeremy. You know what I like. You get the Wug Wug, which is just hilarious. You get the Worm. That's cool. And then you get the monster generator, so you can make your own. You can roll up some stat blocks or choose one you like, make some narrative tags, get some ideas of what kind of creature it is, and some creature features for a common monster and for a rare monster. So another just thing is loaded with tables. I mean, a tiny bit of rules, a tiny bit to create a character, and just tons of ideas, tons of things for monsters. It's amazing what Jeremy did in just a small little book. All right, guys, looking at loot. This is the final part of the book. This is what you want. You want this stuff. So when you find loot or get assigned loot, you just roll on gear. So you can either get armor, weapons, items, and kits, uncommon items, unusual objects. It could be some consumables. It could be some artifacts. And it could just be random shit. Or you could roll a d4 and get 1, 2, 3, 4 if you want. So there's a glossary of these terms. So like if it's what aspect you might need to roll to use that item. SU is single use. If it's a food item, long range, melee, potion, requires might. Some might have to require might. Maybe a mighty battle axe requires a certain might to use. If it's short range, soak value for armor, or if it's a thrown thing. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff you can get. Tons of loot, items and kits. I'm sure a GM would let you use that too. Uncommon items, some unusual objects. Oh, Crystal Skull. Oh no, we don't talk about that movie. That's cool. Skulls. Curious goods, itch powder, meadow shade, mucky pucks. So just all kinds of things you can get. Some foodstuffs, some handy devices, some magic potions, some armor and shields, some books and scrolls. There's no magic in this system. I forgot to mention that. So as you can tell, there's really no classes or anything. Classes are kind of built based on your loot. But there's no spells, so everything is kind of like a found items, which makes it easy for the GM, which I think was Jeremy's plan. Make this thing easy for the GM and the player. Some clothing and attire, some crystals and runes, and some gadgets and gizmos. So if you're a gnome as your lineage, before anyone else, they would have to find this in an adventure. But as a gnome, that's kind of your what comes with your lineage, which is really cool. So the thing I really liked, I had the clicky blinker, which is like a little teleportation device within near range. So I use that a lot with my gnome, and he ended up being like a sniper at the end of the game. I had no plan to make him that. He was going to be an inventor, and then just through emergent gameplay, I didn't really make a background, just a couple ideas about who he was. But then really through gameplay, I figured out, oh, he's like a cool little sniper dude, because he had a mantle that made it easy for him to hide as well. So you got some instruments and oddities. And then you have some jewelry and amulets, some melee weapons, some ranged weapons, some stabs and wands, some tools and equipment, some weird and bizarre items. and then another character sheet. And then Jeremy also kind of acknowledged everyone in the playtest who played this. Unfortunately, I wasn't in this one. I didn't know about Grit back then, but I am in the new one that's coming out, so that's cool. I'm having a good time playtesting with Jeremy and the other guys on his Discord, a couple games. So yeah, maybe go to his Discord, go to his channel, which I'll link below, and go join the Discord. It's a few of us. It's really cool. Like everyone's pretty nice and friendly, and we just talk about stuff that makes us happy. And we talk about grit and some other stuff too, but mostly grit. And hey, maybe you can join in on a playtest now, or maybe in a future game that Jeremy's making, because we keep suggesting how many other types of grit games he should make. Sorry, Jeremy. And then we have these beautiful blank pages, so you can get your copy signed by Jeremy too, maybe. And that's it. That's Grit. Here's a GnomeBot Studios icon and more skulls. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed my super professional video, and yeah, we'll catch you around here next time. See you later. Bye.